Medieval Machines Builder First Siege is the prologue to the full game that is set to come into early access later this year. It's an interesting take on medieval warfare and allows you to build many different types of equipment and weapons that you can use in medieval warfare. Overall, it's not a terrible game, but there are definitely improvements that I would like to see and things that I'm excited to see when it comes into early access. The fact that it is just the prologue and the fact that that is then going to go into early access means that there will be many things still to come, and hopefully they will come in great force. If you do play the prologue, then you will have the ability to rate the game and give feedback to the developers, and also don't forget to add the game to the wishlist if you like it. As always, we'll go through the options first. I will discuss what I like, what I don't like, what I want to see added, and then we'll jump into the gameplay where I will give my first impressions overall. The game has a long way to go, but it is a very promising start, and if they can tweak some things, then I feel like this could be one of the best simulators this year. The options are unfortunately rather lacking at this point. You really don't get a lot of customization or accessibility options that you can really utilize. Also, it is worth noting that the volume is incredibly loud when you start this game up. It does start it at 100%. I did turn it down almost immediately, and it's still honestly quite a bit loud even there. It would be nice to see in the early access or the full release, then maybe making it default to around 50% when you load up the game, just to make it a little bit easier and less deafening on anybody booting the game up. Another thing to take note of is the look sensitivity. They do start it around halfway at 10, but I turned it all the way down to 4.2 as 10 is still incredibly fast moving and can cause a little bit of nausea. You also get the option to invert your mouse, which is a nice little feature. Graphics options are incredibly lackluster. You really don't get anything here at all. With a game that has the potential to have quite a fair amount of texture and AA and stuff that can really make this game pop, it might have a few optimization issues later on down the line, so hopefully with the full release we will get more options here. What you do get is you get full screen on or off, VSync on or off, the resolution and the hertz, so basically the VSync, and your graphics settings on high, medium or low, and your language. Again, I would like to see a lot more be added here, but it suffices. The general settings, it runs fine on my PC, but just bear in mind that the more they add in, the higher graphic fidelity they get. They are going to need to add more options here. Finally, you can rebind your keys, which is something really nice. It's a good thing that they've got this, although generally speaking, you're going to only really be using your tab, your left and your right mouse. You don't really need much. They can have your quick selection here, but it's just as quick to use the quick select wheel in the middle of the screen. One thing I would like to see added is maybe some different colored modes, because everything is quite bland, so if you're colorblind you might have a bit of trouble on this. But outside of that, just more graphic options please would be really nice to see. When you load into a game, you are brought to this screen here. This is your map, and it really showcases the first thing that I am not happy with, and that's this really horrible black screen, the black ring here on the screen. The idea is that you've got to move your cursor, and then you can highlight different sections and or missions that you got to do. You are able to click on them, but it doesn't do anything. You have to drag the black circle over until it highlights, and then you can click on it. Why they have decided to do this, I don't know. It is horrible. I don't like it. Just let me click on the things I want to click on. If you click on a mission that is not available in the First Siege prologue, it will come up on the side and let you know, and they will stack. So if I click on that one, then I click on that one, then I click on that one, and then I click on that one there, they will start to come up each time and let you know that they're not available, which is a little bit annoying, but I get it. It is nice to see that we are going to have these new missions that you can go through and do. It is interesting to note that not all missions are building, which is what I expected them to be. Building with a little bit of destruction and battle mode built in. So border post is where you start, and this is where you basically build your first tower, you build your first catapult, and then you have to knock a tower down, and that's it. That's what the mission is. However, on Crossroads, the catapult is already built, and you just have to fire it. So I can't actually show you on this save what the building's like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out of this, I'm going to start a new game, and we'll go to the border, and I will show you what you've got to do. But yeah, I really don't like this map at all. I don't like this black circle and the way they've done it, and I hope that they do change it in places to come. Okay, so we're on a new game, and we're going to go through the tutorial all over again, because apparently they didn't deem it worthwhile to just rebuild the catapult as part of the gameplay and then take the area out. Like, it's pretty much the same thing that you're doing. It's just that the catapult is already built in the next sort of mission or area. Interestingly enough, it doesn't look like the enemies are fighting back yet in the prologue, but you basically have this camp here, and you have to go down, cut trees down. You've got your log here to delog, you've got your beam here to saw down. One thing I really didn't like is that you have to talk to your quartermaster later on, this guy, and he will give you a job to actually access your items. It's arbitrarily increasing the amount of time that you're on the game, and it's not just that, it's things like your boxes here. You have to get all your boxes of nails. The way that you move them across, you got to double click, which is kind of annoying. You've got your wheels here, which you can pick up one at a time. The rope are all over the place, so you're going to go and find those. And again, it's arbitrarily sort of making you play the game longer than you otherwise would. And the rope I don't mind as much. Like, the rope being around the area, it sort of makes sense because of the fact that we're a mobile camp or whatever. But giving me a fetch quest for the quartermaster to be able to get hold of items I actually need is just tedious and not very fun. The actual cutting down of the trees and things like that, they all have their own little mini game outside of cutting the trees down. So we have to equip the woodcutter's axe here and cut the tree down. You do have skills that you level up, and ultimately it doesn't really make the level up sound that high. So it tells you when you first level up, but it doesn't really notify you after that. So it's something that you're going to have to keep an eye on. The other thing that it's worth noting with the default controls, if you want to run, you have to hit shift. And if you like to quick switch, i.e. shift into tab, then it will bring up your friends list and things like that for Steam. So you're going to have to remember to stop running, to then hit tab, to then select what it is that you want to select. The mini games for each of the things that you got to do aren't terrible. They're very simplistic, but they're sort of fun. I definitely prefer doing the debarking than what I do the soaring. And you do have upgrades and stuff as well, which is kind of cool. Once you've got your wooden beam, you can then have a number of different options. You can take the wooden beam and you can saw here as well. Saw, and you can then do that. You can't actually upgrade all of the skills yet. They're not available in the prologue, which is a bit of a shame. But again, you've only got like the 2 missions that you can play. And then you basically just build the catapult. It does come up here with the grey, and it shows you what it is that you need. It will say whether you just need beams or whether you need the metal, etc., or things like that. And then once it's built, you basically have to take that tower down. The problem with taking that tower down is the fact that the physics don't really work properly. You have to take it down from the top in order to get all the way to the bottom. Like, if you take the bottom sections out, they just kind of sit there, and the tower defies the laws of physics and won't actually fall down. The graphics aren't bad. The textures are a bit but there's a lot of potential here. It actually looks pretty good. And with certain things that you can do and the way that you build them, I feel like they could maybe expand upon. When you get your metal strips and stuff and you start building up the catapult, you have to knock things in and hammer them and stuff, and it just feels like a bit of a wasted opportunity where you could maybe sit and spend the time actually bending the metal to how the shape you want it to be. So if I take here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed through this, and I will show you what I mean. So we are now at the point of hammering in the metal strips and stuff, and it really does point out, to me at least, bits where they could have maybe had less arbitrary dragging out, like going to fetch the quartermaster a beer, and instead give us more to do with the metal. Give us a metal shaping bench that we could then maybe use to bend the metal into place, and then we hammer the nails in separately, as opposed to the option they've gone with here of we get the metal strips, we get the nails, and then they're already magically done, and the only thing that we're doing is cutting and sawing wood. It feels like a wasted opportunity, and that's a real shame. There are more complicated bits as you go through and build the catapult up, which is nice. Like you can, you got to hammer the stakes in for the wheels. You got to put the gear in to make it so that the catapult arm is nice and taut, etc. So they have things like that, but I just feel like it doesn't go far enough. It could go so much further and do so much more, and yet instead it decides to make you wander around the camp looking for pieces of equipment that you don't necessarily or wouldn't think that you would have to look for and do stuff to get a hold of. I feel that they could probably concentrate more on the building aspect instead of as much as they do on the sort of aiming aspect and shooting and using of the catapult. Maybe they could turn it into 2 modes instead of having it as a sort of area on the map that you need to do. They could switch it into 2 separate modes. So you've got build mode and you've got fight mode, and then that way you can sit and build all the things, or you could go in and just shoot all the things. I think that would be a really good way of separating it as the sort of building and the game develops further and later on down the line. Overall, it's a really nice game, and I really want it to do well. I want to see these improvements be made. I want to see how far and how deep they can go into it. At the minute, it's very, very basic. The prologue doesn't really show you a huge amount. It's very repetitive, and speaking of that, these are your upgrades that you get when you level. You can see how much they're going to cost you, and honestly, there isn't a lot here. They do say more upgrades are going to be coming. It would be nice to see if there were more than just your standard, faster by 10 or whatever. But it's a good start. This is a good start for a game. Be interesting to see how they increase the saw level and things like that, and different mini games that they're going to have going on for each thing that you build. Overall, I am kind of impressed. I'm very impressed early on. Like, you don't really use the pickaxe yet. There's no reason to use the pickaxe, but it's nice that it's there. The world could do with being a bit more lively as well. Like, the only one that you can really talk to is the quartermaster, and then once you've given him his beer, he doesn't talk to you either. If they're going to put those RPG elements in, maybe flesh out everybody so they all say something to you. Or don't do that at all and just have an empty place where I can just go and work and do stuff. Another cool thing that they're going to do, if they're going to have the, NPCs and things in, is maybe I could drink a beer like you would in those times, and, drink it and become a bit more intoxicated and make the games a bit harder on yourself, say, or make it so you lose some XP points or you get reprimanded for doing that. It would be nice if they could expand on it, right? Again, this is just the prologue, but these are some things that I would quite personally like to see. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Ciao, ciao.